like one of the things they say in that book that stuck out to me when I talked to Jake, the CEO and founder of SmithRx, was that category creators solve a problem that people didn't even know that they had, right? And I think that to me was sort of a like moment when I first had those conversations where I was like, okay, hold on a second here. Like we're in an industry where there are other people presumably doing the thing that SmithRx does, but actually there's something so problematic about the way that they're doing it that like the need here is to solve a problem that employers didn't even know that they had, right?
Welcome to Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast.
Okay, welcome into Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast. I'm Vince Quinn, and today we're talking about creating a new category. And joining us for that conversation is Vidya Drego. Vidya is the VP of Marketing at SmithRx, where they're redefining pharmacy benefit management. Vidya, welcome to Future Fuzz.
Thanks, Vince. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So first off, for the people who aren't familiar, as you are creating this new category and spreading the gospel of it, if you will, just a little bit of background of what SmithRx is.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So SmithRx is certainly not a household name, nor do I expect we will ever be one. We actually are a pharmacy benefits manager. So what that means is we manage sort of the pharmacy aspect of a health insurance plan. So usually health insurance vendors will, and if you have United Healthcare or Optum or Aetna or CVS or any of those other names, they will use a pharmacy benefits manager to manage the drug portion of benefits. So if you go to a pharmacy and you have a prescription, you need some medication, how that bills back to your overall healthcare benefits. Who gets billed for what thing between the pharmacy, between your employer, and your insurance company. We manage that part of the benefit. Now, some of the bigger healthcare companies have their own PBMs, and so they do their own orchestration of pharmacy benefits. And we provide an alternative in the market, and I'm sure we'll talk about why that's super important. But we're a smaller player in that market, and we provide an alternative to sort of the bigger three health insurance companies.
Yeah, and let's kind of start because it's interesting because you are this competitor to these bigger companies, right? You're the alternative. And it's so interesting for you because, first off, with your background, just going through a little bit, LinkedIn, for example, HubSpot, to be at these big companies, these household names in that sense, and then make the transition to SmithRx. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, the transition was, I think, a big one, like you said, going from a big company to a small company and having, a lot of resources, a lot of mentors, a lot of people at your disposal and having to sort of build that team from scratch obviously is a pretty big leap. But I would also say that like part of, for a lot of people, part of why they spend time at a bigger entity is to sort of learn those ropes and learn the toolkit and then to actually go and test themselves doing it somewhere else. So I think for me, it felt very much like a learning opportunity at all of those places where I can now come in and be like, okay, how do I actually like apply those tools? I've learned a ton of great techniques. I've learned, I sort of have a marketing toolkit at my disposal. How do I now take that and if nobody's telling me what to do, and if it's not obvious what to do, or the organization's not set up to sort of tell you how to execute something, like what do you do? And when you have complete greenfield on that, like what do you choose? And do you have to adapt? And how do you react when the market reacts in a slightly different way from what you expected? So for me, it's like all of that has been a good experience to get to this point in my career and to be at this moment. So it's good build up.
Yeah, no, it is such a good feeling. For me, just like a little background of some of the stuff that I went through. So I spent 10 years in corporate radio. And so, right, so like big entities and these big shows. Yeah, see, it's radio voice. You're listening to 98.5. No, but like doing all of that and editing all these shows and like big morning shows, it's all of this tension and pressure and all these different departments. And then to just walk in and now like independent podcasting and marketing and small business and things like that and go like, oh yeah, I don't have anyone over my shoulder. I've got all these, I can make decisions. I can really drive everything based on what I learned. It is such a liberating thing for sure. And so like what a great position then to find yourself where you get to SmithRx. And then again, like the fun thing is you get to go and start defining this category. So like, let's talk a little bit of that process of as you're getting in the door and really just starting to get the foundation of how SmithRx is going to be presented.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think for me, some of it is like even the decision to come here. You know, like you alluded to it, sort of going from a bigger, well-resourced organization, a household name in some cases, or a business friendly name to one that nobody has really ever heard of, right? And I think for me, the opportunity was in early conversations. It was spotting that opportunity to like lean into building a brand that was about to have its moment, right? And it's interesting because I'm sort of a disciple of like Play Bigger, the book, and sort of read it a couple times in my career, and kind of used a lot of the resources and got to interact with many of the authors. And one of the things they say in that book that stuck out to me when I talked to Jake, the CEO and founder of SmithRx, was that category creators solve a problem that people didn't even know that they had, right? And I think that to me was sort of a like moment when I first had those conversations where I was like, okay, hold on a second here. Like we're in an industry where there are other people presumably doing the thing that SmithRx does, but actually there's something so problematic about the way that they're doing it that like the need here is to solve a problem that employers didn't even know that they had, right? And I say employers because typically we work with self-funded employers who are plan sponsors for their health insurance plans. So, and what was happening in the market, like the backdrop right now is, Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, like every major outlet is doing some sort of expose on, the like middlemen behind your drug benefit, and those are pharmacy benefits managers. And so increasingly there's a momentum bringing to light sort of what's broken, lots of what's broken in the healthcare system, one of which is pharmacy benefits, and sort of saying that the current solutions in the market aren't doing what you think they're doing, which is supposed to be getting drugs at an affordable price in the hands of patients who have prescriptions for them. So, it was an opportunity to solve a problem that like people didn't even know they had, because they were like, oh, my guys are fixing it, right? Like I have one of the big 3 PBMs. They're fixing it. They're getting me my drugs at a good price. Like every year they come back to me and they're like, oh, we'll get it to you at this discount and we're going to promise you this much rebate. And what they've been sold is like a broken system, right? And so in some cases, like we're coming in and we're like, hey, actually, what you've been told by your big 3 legacy PBM is actually not what's getting you the lowest cost drug. And so we're actually solving a problem that in some cases they don't even know they had. So the opportunity is to actually like establish that new problem space, to be like, actually, the thing that you've been doing is not solving this problem that you have. And year over year, when you look at your drug prices, they continue to go up. And so really what you need to be solving is a slightly different problem and thinking about it in a different way. So we're sort of like recontextualizing the problem. And then on top of that, offering the new way we're doing it as a solution. And so I think that opportunity to start at the point where we develop a point of view from like in our audience, right? Like it explains why we exist, what we do for the world. And then going into being like, okay, and here's why the market's broken, and then here's the ecosystem we're designing. Like that, it's rare that you get an opportunity to sort of come in at that moment where you're like, oh, hey, actually, the thing you have is not the thing you need, right? Versus sort of, in other points in my career, it's like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure I need a CRM system. Okay, do I choose HubSpot or do I choose Salesforce, right? Or I'm pretty sure I need a sales intelligence tool. Like, do I think about LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? Like, there's sort of already a category somewhat established, and you're trying to sort of frame yourself as a different alternative in that market, but never that like, oh, what you have is like flat out broken.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
Yeah, I mean, hey, making the best choice in a bad scenario doesn't mean that you've necessarily, done the best you can. So yeah, from that side of it of, hey, you're being given all of these bad choices and we're going to give you this alternative. And it's a whole different way of doing things. I mean, yeah, totally an exciting thing. And I can read that from you just from the sense of, like you said, when you got there, this company's about to have its moment. Like you're seeing that vision. I mean, so to be able then to go about, because let's talk a little bit in that case about educational content, right? Because like you said, you got to let people know that this isn't, they don't even know. So like when you have that kind of battle, how do you begin that fight then to start letting these people know that they actually have an issue that really does need solving?
Yeah, that's it's a great question. And I think this is one of the things that we've spent, like, the marketing team at Smith is only 2.5 years old, a little bit more than that. And from day one, I think that's been one of the common, like, our common OKRs that we've been invested in, like, again and again and again, and keeps showing up amongst the top 5 is like, we need to make sure that we're seen as a trustable thought leader in the market, and specifically like educating benefit leaders, in some cases like C-suite, so CFO, CEO, about what's actually wrong, right? And starting to peel back the layers of the onion, because it is complicated and it's nuanced and sort of very, very messy. And so, I think for us, a lot of that has been an investment in kind of the core content marketing strategies that I think a lot of companies deploy. I think the interesting thing for us has been, like, the metrics we see on that is like beyond what I've really ever seen in my career. Like, our open rates for emails are, like, even just seeing, like, the impact of, like, of moderate SEO investments and even standing up our blog, right, and regularly contributing to it. Like, some of the, like, really, really low hanging fruit, we kind of are like, wait a second, are those numbers right? Like, is there a 0 at the end of that? Like, so it's pretty wild, because I think when I say that we're having a moment, like, it's definitely, like, we see it a lot in the numbers. So I think a lot of it is, like, just standing up our blog, standing up regular newsletters, like, making sure we're investing in, getting like email addresses, so that we do have the right to email our audience, and sort of standing up kind of a sizable database of our partners and kind of interested people in the market, amplifying that on social, adding to it with video and webinars, and then using all of that to sort of, like, drive engagement and conversation, not only externally but internally too. Like, we have so many, there's so many kind of groups within our own organization that are looking at, contracting, or that are looking at, like, regulatory side of things, or looking at, operational side of things, or, through the pharmacy network, or, like, just all these different aspects of our business. So to be able to sort of start to get those people's voices amplified, right? Like, having them engage in contributing content to third parties, to our own blog, getting them on podcasts, getting them on webinars, and then, as we do that internally, I think we're constantly challenging our own definitions, right? Like, what if we explained it this way? This doesn't feel like it's resonating. What if we tried this? And so, as an example, late last year, we introduced kind of an evaluation capability into the market. So traditionally, vendors in this space get evaluated because of how big of a discount they can bring on drug pricing, right? Mm-hmm. So they're like AWP minus 50%, minus 75%, and they do it by category of drugs. So for generics, we can get you 95% off of the average wholesale price, or 90% off, or 80% off, or for specialty we can do this, and so there's always like there's always sort of a discount off of a list price, right? But imagine you go into a store and you go into one store and you're buying a gallon of milk, and you look at it and it was $12, but it's 50% off, right? And you're like, wow, okay, 50% off, that's kind of a lot. No, milk may be dicey here. You don't want to get your milk at a discount, but, like, it's 50% off. You walk across the store or across the street and you see the same gallon of milk and it's $5, right? Most people would choose the $5 milk because $5 is still less than $6. But this is how people buy pharmacy benefits. Like, they look at the discount and not the net price. They're like, oh, 50% of a discount is way higher than a 0% discount. So I'm going to buy the drug that's higher list price but bigger discount, because somehow that to me makes me feel like I'm getting a good deal, right? And most people, when we lay out that analogy, they're like, of course I would buy the $5 milk. It's $1 cheaper than the $6 milk, right? But in fact, vendors in the space never actually give you the net cost. So you don't actually know that it's $5 versus $6, right? And so, that was an analogy that we sort of introduced in the marketplace and kind of took off, we saw a lot of our partner brokers sort of talking about the same kind of analogy or making their own derivations of it. And we kind of reminding ourselves okay, when we push ourselves to come up with new ways of explaining things, more simplified ways of explaining things, more relatable ways of explaining things, maybe we do a better job at explaining the market. So I think a lot of it is creating lots of voices within the company, making sure we amplify them, and then challenging ourselves to sort of continue to explain things easier, more straightforward, and testing that in the market and kind of keeping a healthy virtuous cycle sort of going around it.
Yeah, I mean, and to appreciate the full scope of the way that you really do have to define the entire conversation when it's never discussed, and you don't have, you have limited people that you can have that conversation with, and people aren't educated about it. It is really hard. I mean, I've been around it for the times that I've been around podcasting as a marketing tool, right? The whole problem with that is so many people see it as, oh my God, I've got to get the tens of thousands of views on everything. And it's sure, yes, you would like to get that. But especially for, let's say, small business owners that I've worked with, if you're getting one-on-one with somebody that can be a referral partner for you, and you're getting 3 social media posts and a newsletter out of that, you've done really well. And your message is getting better and you're growing. So it's not necessarily about, hey, how do I get this big audience for sponsors? It's how am I building dynamic relationships with people and creating a consistent message on all these platforms. But the message about podcasting for as long as it's been around, which obviously isn't that long, but it's been fully dominated by, hey, you need the big numbers and the sponsor, and that's the whole thing. And it's no, it's a totally different game. So it gets really complicated in that way, but it's such a fulfilling thing when you do see that message hit. I mean, I can get why when you're talking about putting out certain blogs and things that all these people, you're like, wow, that really, because they can't find it anywhere. They don't see it. They might feel like this is incredibly wrong, but now this is a way for them to actually access that with somebody who believes in it. So, I mean, what a great place to be. And I'll go to follow up a little bit with all that to go into the video, because I've seen just looking at SmithRx and going through LinkedIn, honestly, just checking out your page and seeing what's going on. You have all these new video initiatives that you're working on. So first, let's say modern the PBM 101, right? First off, just tell me the whole background on that and how that project came together.
Yeah. I mean, I think what every marketer knows right now is videos really being prioritized in a lot of people's feeds. YouTube sort of, arguably the biggest search engine out there. And it's probably one of the battlegrounds that sort of everybody is turning to and facing next. It's obviously one where content creation is more expensive and time consuming and doesn't stay fresh as long and stuff like that. So it has its pros and cons. I think for us, again, being in a very complicated, highly regulated space, one that has lots and lots of sort of smoke and mirrors in it, video does offer us a great way to provide more simple explanations and more understandable explanations with some imagery layered in, with some graphics layered in, right? And it's better than a presentation with a floating head on it, right? But we're able to show relationships between things, between entities, in our case, the pharmacy and the plan sponsor and the PBM. And so, that investment, while it's taken us a couple of years to get there, and like I said, we started with sort of the easy stuff, right? How do we get written content out there quickly? How do we start ranking on search engines? How do we make sure that we're top response when people are asking questions about the space? Now we're able to say, okay, how do we explain things in a way that's a little bit more digestible? And if it takes us a few months to create it, that's fine, but we know we have the audience and we've created some of the demand for it already. And then, like you said, you can kind of slice it and dice it and use it in lots of places. So there's shorter versions of it that we can use in pitches. There's shorter versions. We hosted a conference last week, and we were able to sort of use it as an introductory video there. And I will call out like my brand team because I love the style of the video. I think it's unique. It doesn't look like any other healthcare company. It has its own style. It's focused on transparency, which is one of our like key marketing like brand values. So, it really nails our brand and what we stand for. And so to then be able to put something out in the world that feels like authentically like our company has been sort of well worth the effort.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. It is a great, satisfying feeling when those kinds of projects come together, and it does make so much sense too for video, just from the standpoint of it is education, right? Like there's so many people that learn better through the visual or having that accompanying visual. So when you have to do that kind of work, then yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to go into video. So then you're talking about these short video series where it was, I mean, that first episode was maybe like a minute and a half. Then you've got your webinar series that you're now debuting as well and putting that through. So like having all these different styles of video that you're putting together, all these different ways of presenting the information. I mean, a full glossary, a bit of a sidestep, but having a whole just like you need that kind of stuff. So I just think in a sense, it's very admirable to see how concerted the effort has been to really make sure that it's like as clear as possible, because I think this is just the kind of industry where for a lot of people, they have a hard time grappling with it, right? Like all the terminology and everything that goes into it, it's not easy to get engaged with this conversation. And I think you're doing a great job of making it very approachable.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think that's what we want to encourage. And I would say, we've talked about some techniques so far, like video, webinars, those kinds of things that isn't for everybody. Or if you're in a crowded space, you want to, you're trying to figure out how to separate yourself from others in that space. It may not be an obvious choice for us. It was, right? So I think part of the benefit, like coming back to where we started in the conversation of like, you come with a toolkit and you're like, oh, okay, I need to do a blog, I need to do SEO, and I need to make sure that I have like inbound leads coming, sort of a full like inbound engine there. For us, it is a very different market, but some of those anchor pieces of building that following of getting people to understand, of getting people to trust us, we use it in different ways, right? So it's not necessarily seeing the clicks to our site that like helps us justify the investment and drive revenue. For us, it comes through different types of sales motions. But for us, these were still tactics that worked, but yielded slightly different results that were more relevant to our business.
Yeah. And so with all that, I mean, we've covered a bunch of ground. And for the people who are interested in learning more about SmithRx or connecting with you, what's the best way to do that?
Our website, SmithRx.com, does a lot of answering, a lot of what the PBM industry is about, why SmithRx is different. So that's certainly the best way. We also have a great content that you mentioned on LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn, company's on LinkedIn. So both great ways of reaching me and the company.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, Vidya, thanks so much for being on the show, and we'll see you next time on Future Fuzz.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vince.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.